So today we will talk up about respiratory system. We will talk about respiratory system. Respiratory system, you're taking in air, you're expiring out air. All these things. This is a part of the respiratory system, and not only it has got different parts. So initially, I will try to explain the different respiratory structures which are present in your body, and then we have to study about the control of respiration, and then finally we have O2 CO2 distribution in the throughout the body, how O2 is taken to the tissues, and from the tissues how exchange of gases, transport of O2 and CO2 from your lungs to your whole body tissues, and from the tissues how CO2 is taken to your lungs and it is removed. So before we go on to these parts of the respiration, we must see what are the respiratory structures. So I will open the C.C. Chatterjee's Human Physiology book for the structures. I like C.C. Chatterjee; it's very detailed. Even Gerald Tortora's book is also very good. There are lots of human physiology books. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of very good quality books. But I take C.C. Chatterjee because it's a very original book from India, from Bengal. C.C. Chatterjee was a very famous professor. He has expired long time back, Chandicharan Chatterjee. And in Calcutta Medical College, he was a doctor, and as well as he was a professor. And his book was the leading book for many, many years, 50, 60, 70 years or so. It was based on his original works, original discoveries, and his original drawings. Everything was very original in that book. Nowadays, they have taken a new technology, and somebody else. He has expired long back. So new technology has been incorporated. So his book is still continued under his name. So actually, this is from his page. I have opened the respiratory system. It was not so beautiful in former times. Are you able to see this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let us look at the structure of the respiratory system. Let me increase the size. So when you from your nose, it leads to this region known as the trachea. This trachea then it branches out. This is we are talking. One is the right and the left. It branches into bronchus. Further, this is the left principal bronchus, primary bronchus. Then it goes keeps on branches. Then this bronchus again branches into more. It becomes the secondary. So this region is the primary, and this region is the secondary. And then it comes to the second segmental or tertiary bronchus. And there are several successive divisions. You come to a terminal bronchus. This is the terminal bronchus, which leads to an alveolar duct, which leads to an alveolar sac, and this is the alveolus. And this swells, and from all of them, it forms the big lungs. This is the alveolar duct. And there is a space in between that is known as atrium. So this is the respiratory. This part is the respiratory part, and this part takes the air inside to the lungs. So the lungs has not been drawn from here. So respiration can be defined as the process by which oxygen from the lungs is carried by the blood to the tissues. This is the first thing. And carbon dioxide formed from the in the tissues by metabolic activity is carried by the blood to the lungs and is expired out. So first thing is oxygen from lungs carried by blood to tissues. Second, carbon dioxide from tissues is taken out and given back by blood and given back to the lungs. So four stages. C.C. Chatterjee mentions four stages. The first is ventilation. It means the passage of air in and out of the lungs during inspiration and expiration, respectively. So, শ্বাস अंदर लेना फिर শ্বাস छोड़ना, নিঃশ্বাস ভেতরে নেওয়া, নিঃশ্বাস বাইরে ছাড়া. So this is ventilation. This process is the definition of ventilation. Okay. Next is intrapulmonary gas mixing or distribution of oxygen inspired air with the air already present in the lungs. So there is some lungs always some air always present in your lungs. So when you take the oxygen inside, what happens? With the present air, the fresh oxygen rich air mixes, and then from the alveoli there are you can see there are lots of capillaries. I will show you some capillaries. So these are the alveoli. Are you able to see the alveoli?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Here, these little blood vessels are coming out. The red ones are the venous blood draining into the oxygen of the pulmonary vein. So one is, so this is the capillary. One is artery, one is vein. It is very interesting to know arteries, they carry fresh oxygenated blood. Okay. But there is one and veins, they carry the deoxygenated blood rich in carbon dioxide back to the heart. We all know this. Arteries carry fresh oxygenated blood and veins are blue in color. But there is one exception, and that is the pulmonary vein. So for the pulmonary artery which is coming, that is also opposite. It carries deoxygenated blood. So what happens from your heart? The heart pumps normally it pumps fresh blood to the arteries which goes throughout your body. But from the pulmonary artery, that means it is sending the blood to the heart, to the lungs, where it needs to be purified, make it oxygenated. So the pulmonary artery, the blood which is sent by the pulmonary artery actually is deoxygenated. All the veins are bringing to the heart the deoxygenated blood, and the pulmonary artery from the heart, it is sending the deoxygenated blood to the lungs. Now the lungs will purify and and send oxygenated blood through the veins. माने एकदम उल्टा हो रहा है whole body के. What happens in the body, just opposite happens here. The arteries and veins are ulta. Here artery is bringing from the heart to the lungs, to the organ, it is bringing deoxygenated blood. The lungs is purifying that blood. Exchange हो जाता है, oxygen comes in and sticks to the blood, and carbon dioxide is released from the blood and it's going out. So ulta. So what the blood which comes out from the lungs through the vein, it is the pulmonary vein. This pulmonary vein, it takes back to the heart, and now the heart, through dual respiration, dual circulation. One circulation is, it is sending through pulmonary artery to the lungs, and lungs is sending it back to the heart, fresh blood. Now this fresh blood, the heart pumps this fresh blood, and through the dorsal aorta and all these arteries, it will send throughout the body. And then vena cava will take all the venous blood and bring it back to the heart. And then, so one circulation is taking place from the heart, lung, heart. Next circulation is taking place from the heart, body back to heart. So this is known as dual circulation. Therefore, when people say what is dual circulation, where humans don't have, there is not a one single circulation, there is a double circulation. One circulation takes it to the lungs to purify and bring it back. The next one takes it to the body and bring it back. So always keep in mind. So these, what is meant by dual circulation? These questions are normally asked. Okay, is this clear part?
Yes, sir.
Okay. হ্যাঁ শ্রেয়াস কিছু কোয়েশ্চেন আছে না okay let's get back to it. So the next part is diffusion, which means gas transfer across the alveolar capillary membrane due to tension gradient. So the moment you take air inside your lungs, it is rich in oxygen. So the concentration of oxygen is much higher. In terms of gas, you talk about concentration in terms of partial pressure. So what is when you take air inside, there is a pressure of the air on your lungs, and this air is a mixture of oxygen, carbon dioxide, nitrogen, everything. So partial pressure is the pressure contributed by the oxygen component only. Partial pressure of oxygen. Partial pressure of carbon dioxide is the pressure exerted by the carbon dioxide component only. So what you don't talk in terms of concentration of gas. You talk about in terms of um, partial pressure. So what happens when you take it inside? Say hypothetically speaking, you take the concentration of oxygen is high. So rather, it's better to say the partial pressure of oxygen is then high in your lungs, and in the lungs you have the little capillaries, the arteries and pulmonary veins, which are the small capillary network which has been formed. Now from this membrane, what happens because of from diffusion, what happens, oxygen is higher inside the lungs and it is lower in the blood, the blood brought by the pulmonary vein. So what it does, oxygen diffuses to the blood. This is gas transfer. And carbon dioxide in your lungs is less and carbon dioxide in your in the blood is high. So what happens, carbon dioxide is from diffusion is released from the blood to the lungs. Plain and simple diffusion process. Then the next step is perfusion. It means flow of adequate quantity of blood through the lungs so that the diffused gases are carried away. So we have seen sufficient quantity of blood must come. So oxygen must be carried away to all parts of the body as well as the heart, and the carbon dioxide must be released. So actually, lungs is connected to the heart, but there are other arteries also which feed the lungs also with fresh oxygen, because usko bhi khud ka oxygen chahiye na, and it is so that is it's also an organ. That's another level of circulation. But two circulation, one is throughout the body and heart, one is from the heart to the lungs and back to the heart. Throughout the body means all organs including the lungs. So are we clear about the respiratory structures? ঠিক আছে?
Yes, sir.
ওকে, এগুলো অতটা দরকার নেই. So we are talking about the respiratory unit. Three things: respiratory bronchioles, alveolar duct, respiratory atrium, and pulmonary alveoli. As you have seen in this photo, this is the respiratory bronchioles, alveolar duct, atrium, alveolar sac, alveolus. So this is the respiratory part. The respiration part takes place from here. Here all things are coming inside from from your nose or mouth. It's coming to the lung. Tracheatum is nothing but the pipe, but the real respiration part starts in this place. The diffusion and everything, it happens in the alveolar sac and alveolus. So now I will open this part, control of respiration. Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
নাকি আরেকটু বড় করলে ভালো হয়?
Yes, sir.
Now, is it okay? আরেকটু
Yes,
বড়
sir.
দেখি 175 করে দিই। So, who controls respiration? There are certain areas of the brain that stimulate contraction of the diaphragm and the intercostal muscles. So, muscles in your chest are the intercostal muscles. As I'll show the muscles from CC category only. Intercostal muscles. So, what happens is air is drawn in, lungs expands, and there is this diaphragm, which is a thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity, the internal characteristic of mammals. Lung is expanded, the diaphragm goes down, and air is going out, and lung contracts. So this is the position of the diaphragm. So in between your uh, these bones, these particular ribs, you have these muscles, intercostal muscles. When they contract, it expands. When they reduce, it goes down. So you have the external intercostal muscles, and then inside you have the internal intercostal muscles. So this muscle contracts and expands. When lung goes inside, the muscle expands. Another set of muscle contracts for this set of muscle to expand. So this is what happens. You don't have to study too much of this. Therefore, I'm not going into details. So what are so there are areas of the brain that stimulate the contraction of the diaphragm and the intercostal muscles. So you have seen in between the rib cage the muscles which are present uh, in between. So basically, mutton ke sine ke piece mein you have the intercostal muscles of which you eat. It is for the during the respiration in the ribs. सीना का piece जो होता है. Those are the intercostal muscles. They're very tasty also, quite tasty, soft. So the medullary inspiration centers. So this is you are seeing the brain. Four center is there. First is the inspiration center. Inspiration which stimulates air to take inside. Suddenly from my brain the impulse is coming. It is telling me and to take air inside. And that's exactly those things which are happening. So in inspiratory center, this is the nerves. They start from here in the medulla oblongata, and these nerves goes down. One goes to another region known as the pneumotoxic center in the pons villi. Pons is the region in the brain, and you have the expiratory system. It's also in the medulla. It helps you to exhale out. So, and it is connected to the vagus nerve. Then you come to the peripheral region. Peripheral is a whole body, surrounding body. Peripheral region. You have the peripheral chemoreceptors. Then you have some chemoreceptors in the brain, and you have some mechanoreceptors. Mechanoreceptors means touch and all these things. So it is all these are the areas which control the breathing. So what does the inspiratory center do? It generates rhythmic nerve impulses that stimulate contraction of inspiratory muscles. Who are the inspiratory muscles? Diaphragm and the external costal muscles. Viral costal muscles. They contract and then it increases your lung size. Normally, expiration occurs when these muscles relax. But when breathing is rapid, the inspiratory center facilitates expiration by stimulating the expiratory muscles, which are the internal intercostal and abdominal muscles. Peter muscles and internal abdomen. You have seen external where they are located. একটা বাইরের দিকে থাকে, একটা ভেতরের দিকে থাকে, the intercostal muscles. So external contraction, it results in your lungs taking in oxygen. Your chest is expanding and diaphragm moves up, moves down. And opposite, what happens when this muscle relaxes, then automatically the air which has come inside goes outside. You're respiring. So this is the process which takes place. It clear? Is this clear? Naki, not clear. Hello? Am I audible? Acha, acha, it's audible. It's audible. Audible though?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So far clear though?
Yes, sir.
Next, so this is from the inspiratory center. The pneumotaxic, this is a spelling error over here. It should be N. Instead of that, I have typed H. The pneumotaxic area is located in the pons region in the brain. And it inhibits the inhibitory center, limiting the contraction of inspiratory muscles and preventing lungs from overinflating. So you're taking inside oxygen. Inside you're taking oxygen, and this pneumotoxic center, what it happens, there is a response. Some nerves go here. When a lot of a contraction is taken, so there is a stimulus from the nerves which stops. No more inspiration. The pneumotaxic area does that. Then that leads, there is another area over there known as the apneustic area. It stimulates the inspiratory center. So one side it is stimulating. So tomake, you want to take a deep breath. So it is stimulating your muscles from the brain. You want to do it, so you are able to do it. Prolonging the contraction of inspiratory muscles. The respiratory centers are influenced by stimuli received from the following three groups of central neurons. So there are some three groups of central neurons. What are these neurons? Central chemoreceptors, nerves of the central nervous system, located in the medulla oblongata. They monitor the chemistry of the cerebrospinal fluid. As the name goes, chemoreceptors, chemical, it detects chemicals. So in your in the inside your brain and the spinal cord, there is a fluid known as CSF, cerebrospinal fluid. So they monitor the chemistry over there. When CO2 from the plasma enters into the cerebrospinal fluid, it forms bicarbonate and H+, and the pH of the fluid drops. Carbon dioxide বেশি হলে কি হয়? Carbonic acid তৈরি হয়. Fluid drops. So that means you need more oxygen. So if when you need more oxygen, it will induce the central chemoreceptors will induce the respiratory center to increase inspiratory rate. So suddenly, if the pH of the CSF drops, these chemoreceptors will detect, oh, how chemical is carbon dioxide, but yeah, lots of carbonic acid is present. So immediately we need more oxygen. Are breathe karo andar. So when you are running, you need more oxygen. Your pH falls becomes more acidic because of carbon, that you start breathing more and more because your these chemoreceptors have told your inspiratory center, are take more oxygen. So you keep on breathing constantly. Ha ha ha. হাঁপাতে শুরু করো. So clear so far? Yes,
Sir,
no? Yes, okay.
sir, from
Huh?
sir in the beginning you have explained something, sir. Due to some reason I have to exit. So please could you repeat that?
I was talking about these things only. It's control of breathing. From where did you miss?
So from the beginning, sir. So only the beginning part, sir.
Beginning part, that means even all the muscles and everything.
No, sir. After that.
After that, okay, okay. So I had just talked about these control centers. One is the inspiratory center, you have the pneumotoxic center, expiratory center. So inspiratory center is in the medulla oblongata, pneumotoxic center is in the pons. So inspiratory center, it stimulates your lungs to take in more oxygen. Pneumotoxic center has got two regions. One region will say no more, one region will stimulate inspiration, and one region will give a feedback, no, you have taken in sufficient air, no more inspiration. Then that there is an expiration center which will make the muscle to release your oxygen. So the internal intercostal muscles will contract and the external will relax, intercostal, and then air is given out. So this is what I was talking about. And then there are chemoreceptors, some nerves of the central nervous system, which is located in the medulla. They monitor the chemistry of the cerebrospinal fluid. So when you are running, for example, what happens? Lots of carbon dioxide release, it forms carbonic acid. And what happens is that lots of the pH falls. So once the pH falls, the central chemoreceptors, they understand chemical response. pH come. So pH come matlab more carbon dioxide. So please respire more. And when you please respire more, what is the result of please respire more? You take in more oxygen. So when you're running, a lot of carbon dioxide is produced, oxygen falls. So you keep on breathing, running, or when you're under tension, your body needs oxygen, the pH falls.
Okay,
Okay.
sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Then it comes to the peripheral chemoreceptors, nerves of the peripheral nervous system. They are located in aortic bodies in the walls of the aortic arch and carotid bodies in carotid arteries. So it's in the bodies of the whole arteries throughout your body. So throughout your body, you have these peripheral chemoreceptors, the nerves of the peripheral nervous system, outside nervous systems. The whole throughout your body it is present. And when it falls over here, it stimulates your brain. From the peripheral center, it stimulates your central nervous system. Oh, here your body में oxygen कम हो गया, more. You start taking in more oxygen. When you are sleeping, you don't need, your breathing rate falls. So when you are sleeping, for example, your oxygen consumption is very low. So I will explain this picture over here. First in this region, cerebro decreased ventilation. Decreased ventilation मतलब taking in air, take a breathing in and breathing out. तुम्हारा सांस कम हो रहा है. That means there is increased pressure of carbon dioxide. That means carbonic acid increases, blood pH falls. Chemoreceptors in aortic and carotid bodies, they are sensory, they are stimulated. They go to the blood, cerebrospinal fluid. So increased carbon dioxide means plasma CO2. So more CO2 in the blood, CSF, chemoreceptors in the CSF, they will detect, and it will go to the respiratory center in the medulla oblongata, and they will uh, stimulate spinal cord motor neurons, which will stimulate the respiratory muscles and increased feedback. So lots of increased breathing rate increases, and when it increases too much, there is a lot of oxygen is coming and negative feedback comes, and this stops the PCO2 down. It becomes PO2 increases, and your breathing stops. Clear? This is how respiration is controlled. So this is what I explained over here. So breathing, oxygen inside lungs, hemoglobin picks up the oxygen, takes it throughout the body. Oxygen is diffused to the tissues. From the tissues, carbon dioxide comes here. It is transported by CO2 and it goes into the lungs. And in the lungs, the CO2 is removed. Next day, we will be explaining transport of O2 and CO2 through hemoglobin into the blood, and from the blood house here, from the tissues, how CO2 is released and blood takes it to the lungs. Next day, we will be talking about that part. Clear? এই নোটটা পড়ে রেখো তাহলে। So, any questions? No, sir. সুনন্দা, নাফিসা, পর্ণালী তো বলে দিচ্ছে, রুচি, শ্রেয়া,
No,
No, sir.
সব no. Okay. Then bye bye. On Monday we will talk about transport of O2 and CO2. That is, from there you can expect 5 marks question. Now in this part we will there are certain volumes short definitions. হ্যাঁ মানডেতে আছে। কটা থেকে টিউশন আছে? हो मंडे में वो प्रॉब्लम है। We do it on Tuesday, okay? Tuesday morning করে নেব। Online, offline, both. Those who want online, those who want offline, offline.